Welcome to the Unbound Woman podcast, the space where we stop playing by the rules that kept us small, burnt out, and disconnected from our bodies, and start living in our full power. I'm Neve, a 4/6 generator with a Leo rising, Pisces moon, and Aquarius sun, and I'm the creator of the Embodied Woman method. This isn't just another self-help checklist, it's a way of coming home to yourself through our 4 core pillars. 1. Your rooted body, where we strengthen, nourish and balance our hormones so our physical vessel feels safe and alive. 2. Your feminine flow, connecting to your cycles, womb wisdom, sensuality, so you can move with your own rhythm instead of against it. 3. Your radiant heart, healing your nervous system, feeling your feelings and creating emotional safety so joy actually sticks. And 4. Your wild spirit, from energy work, intuition and pleasure that anchor you into your unique essence. And the in-between? We reset, regulate and radiate because healing isn't about fixing what's broken, it's about reclaiming what was always yours. Here we'll talk strength training and nervous system science in the same breath as self-love, boundaries and dancing in your kitchen. We'll laugh, get real and have conversations that you didn't know you needed, the ones that free you from the stories that you are bound. So take a few deep breaths and let's jump on in to this week's episode. Hello, my loves. I'm recording this episode for like the 3rd time. Because every time I finish it, something deeper comes in. I'm like, oh, I need to talk about that and I miss that. And what I will say is that the spicy bit that was released there the other day, I would actually highly recommend that you go and listen to that first. It's only a few minutes long and it's basically just to talk to you about the modality and the methodology that I am bringing through in all things for myself, because the pillars within it and talking about the 4 bodies is really important for the context of what I'm talking about at all times. And they are the pillars in which I choose to live my life by, and how I'm going to bring women through the stages of like from overwhelm to a really peaceful life. Not peaceful, but like easeful in terms of like being able to move through, being able to understand themselves, not having to give up a 9-to-5 job while also running everything else. You know, I think I've heard it so much in the industry that like your 9-to-5 job is what's burning you out. And it's like, actually, no, it's not understanding yourself. It's not understanding your boundaries. It's not understanding your energy. It's not understanding your monthly cycle. Like, there's so much more to it than just quit your 9-to-5 job and set up your own business. Because I can tell you, as somebody who is recreating their business very slowly, is that you don't like trying to run your own business when you're in constant overwhelm and burnout and thinking of the next thing and trying to make money. Like, it's exhausting. And I don't recommend it for everybody. I don't think it's everybody's life path. And I also don't think it's ideal to be encouraging this in people when you don't know their wounds and you don't know how deep it goes. So I would highly recommend going back and listening to that Spicy Bits episode. There's going to be another spicy bit released after this, because in my last podcast that I recorded for this same episode that I'm re-recording, I had a beautiful download for you all while I was there, so I'm actually going to cut that out and put that in as a spicy bit so you can sit down. I'll add some music to it and stuff as well to make it just flow really nicely. But yeah, what I will say is that my last episode was about the physical body and what happens and how it impacts with the nervous system and the mindfulness and all of this kind of stuff. And I want to then go on to the physical body and why it's so important that we look after this body on a very conscious level. But also, I want to give you some tips and tricks to take away the fucking overwhelm around everything right now. And I'm going to get really real with you about how I deal with this and why I use the specific modalities that I do, or the specific tips or ways that I do things. But the body is incredibly important because what many of us don't realize is that when we aren't fully looking after our body, there's a form of disconnection going on because being in the body is uncomfortable for whatever reason, right? And what I mean by that is if we've had trauma, as I've said before, trauma gets stored in the nervous system. And when I mean trauma, I don't just mean big T trauma. I'm also talking about, when you went to the shopping centre and you ran off a little and you turn around and your mum's gone missing and you panic. And then she comes around the corner like within a few seconds. To you, it's a lifetime. To you, she abandoned you. But to her, she just walked off and you didn't follow. Or you had ran ahead and she hadn't caught up. But that's still a trauma to us as a child because we don't understand the context until we're much older. So like that can also be traumatic in a very different way, but that will still live in the nervous system. Whereas somebody else might have had a bigger abandonment trauma, like let's say a parent passed away on them when they were young, maybe they just up and left. Divorce can bring up abandonment wounds, all these kind of bits and pieces. So like it's not that anybody's trauma is bigger than another's in terms of how their nervous system reacts to it. Okay, so everybody is relative in their trauma. It's relative to their life experience, right? But it all reads the same in the nervous system, which is wild. So it could just take a lot longer though to bring up something that's a heavier trauma, if that makes sense, because it comes with a lot more stuff. So our physical body is what gets impacted. Our reaction, our feelings, even the emotional body, that all sits in the body. It's all felt by the body at all times. So when we feel these things, we experience them. We don't just experience them in our heads, we actually experience them in a full body state. So when the body becomes too much for us to be in, because it can be fucking uncomfortable, right? When it's too much for us to be sitting in, we disconnect and we come into our head. Or I find that a lot of, if you're deeply spiritual, you can sometimes try and go into what we call the 5D, where you're trying to escape the body completely. And that can also be just as dangerous. So you're trying to come away from the body. And actually our bodies are speaking to us at all times. As I said, those electromagnetic currents, like it's always telling us, like that pain that you just woke up with, that you didn't do anything different and it's sore, the stiff neck, the PCOS or endometriosis that you're experiencing, the immune dysfunction that's going on, the chronic illness that you've got. Like these are all, as I said in the last episode, are buildup of something that's going on in the body because we're not releasing it effectively. So again, as we're trying to escape the body, we become disconnected. And then we come around to kind of, I don't want to say ill treating our body, but we don't look after it. We don't respect it in terms of like, we're not being mindful around the nutrition or nourishing it. We're not being mindful about what the body would need for longevity. Like so many of us have been taught that looking after our health is like a reactive thing rather than actually something that we can do now, right? And this is because we've been taught by the medical industry that we're all going to be fine and you can just throw a pill at it. And it's like, actually, we could prevent this. Preventative medicine just isn't a thing in our medical practice effectively, in particular Western society. So, when we experience those things and we become disconnected, this is where things can happen where we end up with like period issues, where we end up with, as I said, hormonal imbalances, we end up sick, we overconsume on everything, right? I don't just mean food. I also mean like processed food, sugar. I mean like consuming maybe TV shows, consuming social media, consuming in terms of constantly buying materialistic things. And there's nothing wrong with all of these in moderation, right? But the problem is when we begin to overconsume, we are distracting ourselves from what's really going on in the body and in our lives, and we're trying to soothe ourselves. And none of this is a bad thing. Like I've gone through my spectrum from, restrictive eating to binge eating, like, and emotional eating. I've been there. So I totally get it. I've been one of those people. And I haven't completely cleared it all from my life, but we're getting there, right? But when we start doing that, our physical health starts to take a toll, as does our emotional health, our mental health. And as I said before, the body begins to whisper until you won't listen, and then it begins to scream. And that's where so many people nowadays are. Like, is it like 80% of chronic illness is actually women? Like, that's an astonishing and absolutely terrifying statistic that most people with chronic disease, 80% of that is women. And none of that surprises me, right? Between us wanting to try and hold it all because we can now do it all, right? And along with us trying to constantly be independent and too afraid to ask for help, along with taking on all the responsibility and not asking our man to show the fuck up for us. Like, no wonder why we feel the way that we do. No wonder why we've got these chronic illnesses, because we've completely had to detach from our body to get us through the fucking day, right? I'm there. I understand it. It is a constant battle, I think, for so many of us as women. And there are days where like just kind of pushing through is required, and I don't necessarily disagree with that, but I do think when you're so wholly disconnected from your body, you forget that this is a home, that this beautiful body and all the abuse, particularly I have put my body through, and still every fucking day it wakes up, every day it can walk, every day it can help cook dinner, every day it types on my laptop, every day it takes a breath automatically without me even having to try, like, and all of what I've put my body through, it's still here for me. And that is incredibly important, because if we truly want to have safety and live the life we truly desire, the body has to be able to hold it. But also the body has to be able to align with it. Now, this does not mean we all have to be a size 0, right? That's not what I'm getting at in this. I am definitely not a size 0, nor will I ever be again. I have been. Not a nice place to be in life. But I do think that when we look after ourselves on a physical level, that really changes the game to help us with the other 4 pillars of the embodied woman method, the other 4 bodies that are around all of this, because that's where we channel through, you know. So yeah, we channel through the body, as I said in my last episode. We are the conduits. We want to look after it. So how do we do that? And I think there's a lot of different ways that we can look after ourselves. I think there are staples within it. And I also think the fucking wellness industry out there, guys, is absolute torture right now. Between people starving themselves to have a 6-pack, to being told that everything in the body is fucking separate, to being told that everything is wrong with your body. And I don't just mean physically, right? When I'm talking about the body, I'm not just talking about aesthetics, because I'm not here about the aesthetics at all. Because there is such thing as skinny fat, which is for a different episode. Or actually, I think I might actually have an episode on that before. If you go back to season 2, I definitely talk about it on there. So I would highly advise going back to that. I think it's like something about the body positivity movement. Because I don't wholeheartedly disagree with it, but I do think there's a danger going on there. Anyway, go check that out. But yeah, this isn't about aesthetics. What I'm talking about is like having an overall healthy body. And we're being told, like, you need to look after your lymphatic system, and then you need to look after your liver, and then you've got your hormone imbalances, right? You have to make sure your hormones are like constantly balanced, and then you have to ensure that like your kidneys are detoxing correctly, and then you need to ensure like X, Y, and Z, your mitochondria, that's another one, your metabolism, your gut, like your bowel, you don't have IBS or IBD. We've all of these things, right? And it becomes so overwhelming. And I'll have to say, about 2 years, gotta be 2 years since I did Cambo, when I kind of went on my next phase of this health journey. Like, I've been doing this for well over 10 years, but it was a very
visceral experience with Cambo, I came out and I was like, right, we are done now. We are just going to work through all of this. And from that time onwards, I really started looking at everything and looking into everything. And while, yes, I love to do that and I love to embody, so I have to research on myself a lot. What I found was by the time I got to the following June, when I just before I gave up my job and then the business, I was so burnt out on a day-to-day basis with decision fatigue and the amount of not just food noise, but wellness noise that was going on for me. And everything I seemed to do was having an impact on something else. And then I felt like I had to look at that. Like I was like looking at my lymphatic system, and then I was trying to look at my hormones, and then I was trying to look at my gut health. And I was trying to do all of these things very, very separate. And because I was thinking about them all separately, and I knew logically that everything in the body has a knock-on effect. But I felt like I had to do everything separately to quote unquote, like correct them, to correct everything that was going on. So I had just had enough last year. I was like, I'm exhausted, I'm burnt out. Food noise was insane because one thing that would help the liver wouldn't help this and wouldn't help that, but it would help something else. And it was like trying to get X amount onto your plate, and I was exhausted, right? And then trying to do all the things on top of that. And I was seeing everything as like a separate thing, you know? And I had to sit down with myself and go, there has got to be an easier way for women. There has to be an easier way for myself to manage this. Like, I can't keep going this way because this stressing and overwhelm is not helping me. I don't feel safe in it. My nervous system, my inner child was going fucking wild. It was like, absolutely not. Like, I just want you to look after me and I don't want to have to do all this work. And not that I'm becoming your Irish biohacker by any means, but I do think there are ways in which we can make all of this so much fucking easier on ourselves. So that's what I've done. So these things I think should be staples in almost everybody's week. I don't believe that you have to do everything every single day, right? I think that also wasn't helping, where I was like, oh my God, I have to dry brush every single day. No, no, no. I dry brush before my shower. I shower every day. I may not do it 4 times this week. I may do it 3. You may be lucky if I do it 2. It will depend on my mood and how cold it is, right? Like, I might do it. My tongue scraping, I did it for like 4 days in a row there, forgot this morning, possibly could forget tomorrow. I really want to make this successful where like you're not beating yourself up for not doing things. So, ways I have kind of habit stacked the body health things are like going for a walk, right? I try and hit so many walks a week. That is something I have set for myself. I think you can look at your own template. I'm not here for cookie cutter. So if you're listening to this and you're like, oh my God, I need to do everything Neve's doing, please don't, right? You need to figure out what works for you. So, I go for a walk. And that helps pumping the lymphatic system. That helps ground me. That helps with my head. It gives me some head space. I get some vitamin D while I'm out. It can clear my energy field. If I put on like a walking manifestation podcast or something like music, I can manifest if I want to while I'm going. Sometimes I have a chat with the universe as I'm going along as well. Like, all in that, I have ticked off something along with exercise, which is good for the body. It's great for the heart, right? So, like, there you go. It'll also help me sleep at night. It helps me move energy. There we go. Boom. All that lymphatic system. Then it helps with the liver. Then it helps, which the liver then helps with detoxing hormones. Blah, 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 right? There we go. Boom. Habit stacks. Do you see how easy I want to make this for you? Another one. Now, I think weight training will probably get a full episode by itself at some point. But I do think for women, we are shortchanging ourselves if we are not resistance training. It has so much longevity benefits for us. Building muscle is so important. And actually for women, building muscle is like a game changer in the world. And but it needs to come from a place where you've got intention with it. And but what I mean by intention is, if you're going in there and your nervous system is so burnt out, weight training is not for you. Okay, right now in this moment, maybe get some bottles of water or do some body weight stuff, absolutely, but don't go in there and try and pull weights and put yourself into a stressful situation, because it can actually have an impact. I did strength train through my overwhelm and my burnout, and the reason I did was because it was teaching me something. But I was also very aware, like at the time I was unemployed, so like I could go and stress my body out and then come home and relax for the rest of the day. So like it was a very different scenario. And if you're in where I'm at right now, sure, go right ahead and give it a go. But I would say that if you still have lifing, that for the while, maybe do some home workouts. Maybe download a Pilates app and do some resistance training with that. I don't think that should be the only thing that you do. I do think progressive overload is required actually for long-term health for women. Not even, I know people are like, oh my God, but like I've heard so much about it for menopause. Sure, don't wait until you're in menopause. Don't wait until you're perimenopausal. Like, there's 2 times in the world to start something. One was yesterday, and the second one is today, right? Like, you can always control when you start something. And I think weight training, it doesn't have to be heavy weights, can be so amazing for the body. It helps detox, it builds muscle. That muscle from there helps with so much around the body. Again, I'll probably go into this in a podcast at some point, but I don't want to go into the benefits here, because I think it is more, this episode is more about how important it is to look after this physical body and why it's so important for us, because we haven't been taught this. Like, our schools don't teach this to kids. Like, we're taught to sit at a desk for 8 hours a day. Like, no human in the history of the world up until about 50, 60 years ago ever had to do that. Like, even schools back 100 years ago weren't there for 8 hours a day. We weren't sitting at desks or computers all day as adults. You know, again, this came with the Industrial Revolution. A lot of the industrialization was like, were like factories and on the line, and you would be walking up and down and you would be moving, and now it's all changed. So like, we're sitting and are sedentary now more than ever, and we don't realize the impact that's having on our bodies, because it stagnates our energy, right? It stagnates the blood circulation. There you can go for your lymphatic system. We're all back down the hole again, right? Back down on the Ferris wheel. So, you know, I think moving and building that muscle can be really important to help with that. And also for me, being in under a bar or pulling something or upping weights on a day when I really don't want to shows me what my body is actually capable of. And I think I always keep my cycle in mind, right? But I also am very much coming away, I'll talk about this in another episode, away from this cookie cutter cycle syncing template shite. And I'm very much like, I love cycle syncing. I think there's definitely a place in the world for it. But I've also started to learn about myself, my cycle, and when I am at my most optimal, when I work better, when I can hit the gym, when I can't, all of these kind of things. And I think it's really important that when you're in the gym, that you're being really intentional and very present about the fact that, like, cool, you might have gone up a kilo in terms of the dumbbell you're pulling today. Like, you can do hard things. Your body is more capable than you let it think it is. Like, sometimes it's a mindset shift. Also, with discipline, I think we're so fucking afraid of discipline recently. And I'm like, actually, discipline is a really high form of self-love. I know, all the feminine flow coaches just went, oh my God, what are you talking about? Feminine flow. And not that I don't agree with feminine flow. I love feminine flow. I love being in my feminine. Have you met me? And if you haven't, welcome. But I love being in my feminine flow, and I think for me, having that discipline and showing up consistently does so much, right? It shows me that I can show up when that day is hard. It shows me that I can do hard things, like I said earlier. It shows me that I'm willing to show up to be successful. I'm willing to show up as many days as possible and consistently. So like the 2 days before my period, and usually the first 2 days of my period, like I will not be in the gym. I can't do it. My body doesn't want to. It is what it is. I don't beat myself up about that because I'm like, well, consistently, I always show up. And it's not about aesthetics or weight loss for me. Sure, that is definitely a massive positive. But actually, since I've been in the gym the last year and all the work I've put in, like actually the scales haven't moved technically at all. I packed on muscle and my body composition has changed, but actually I've not changed. And as hard as that can be at times, because we're taught that this is the thing, I'm actually okay with it because I can see other health markers moving. I can see how good I feel. I can see how much my nervous system and my mindset has shifted because I'm showing up. So, I think that's something we need to recognize within ourselves. And this physical body deserves to move. It deserves to feel healthy. You deserve to feel fucking healthy. Like, you actually deserve it. And you deserve to live a really healthy life. And you deserve to have all the things that you truly want in your life and to fucking enjoy them. I think that can be so hard for people when, like, sure, my manifestation has come through, but I feel like crap because I have IBS or IBD, or I have PCOS symptoms that have kicked off again, or I'm debilitated because I can't move because my endo is having a flare up for the third time this month. Like, I know how hard that can be. So, like, allow yourself to be deserving and align your actions with that. Another tip as well recently, and I know again, all the coaches in the world are going to go wild. I've actually brought all of my food habits down to 3 meals a day. Now, excuse me, I'm in my luteal phase, so I'm having like a little snack if I need one. But like I'm having 3 really hearty meals. I'm not calorie tracking. I'm very well versed in portion, how to build a plate effectively is what I like, not portion control, like how to build a plate. And I can eyeball what I require and how I feel what I need. And that's taken years, so I'm not perfect at this, okay? And particularly since the fast, like a lot of this has changed since the fast. But I am now eating 3 hearty meals a day and I feel amazing. This may not work for you, so I'm going to be very, very honest about that. Everybody is different. And like in my luteal phase now, I am hungrier, so I either have extra food, an extra meal, or I'm having some kind of like hearty snack that I've created myself. And that's just, I'll go with that as I feel. And the difference is though, everything I'm eating is a lot more nourishing. And yeah, I had a donut for breakfast yesterday. Like, absolutely not trying to say I'm perfect. That's not what I'm saying. But since I started trying to keep meals really simple and not have to think about 6 meals or 5 meals a day, like all the bodybuilders will tell you, or your PTs, like I find that exhausting. I find decision fatigue around food really, really exhausting. I think because I've done it for so long now and I've tried so many different methodologies when it comes to food that I'm just beyond exhausted. So for me, I really come back to like 3 simple meals a day. It will have some form of veggie on it. It will have some kind of whole meal carb in terms of like potatoes or rice, or like sometimes gluten-free pasta if we're going bougie, and then I'll have a meat source. And sometimes that might be a chili con carne, and sometimes that might literally be meat, potatoes, veg. And for a lot of people, you'd be like, what? I'm like, actually, that has taken away so much decision fatigue. And actually, for my lunches, more times than not, it's a granola bowl. It's like a little bit of granola, some Greek yogurt, and some fruit. I'm not going wild. The reason for this is because I think if you're a working woman and you're trying to constantly think about the next meal, where am I going to fit it in? That is so already exhausting on top of everything else. And like Liam and I have spoken, like when he goes back to work, it'll probably be hybrid. And if that is the case, what I'm going to do for dinners is I'm just going to put on an extra portion for both of us and then box them up, and that can be my lunch for the next day and his lunch for the next day. So I'm technically not cooking 3 times a day. I'm so tired of cooking 3 times a day. Even when Liam does take over, like, he does a fair bit of cooking. He cooks for himself. He deals with his breakfast and lunch, and he'll do a few dinners a week. But it still doesn't matter. Like, when you're constantly trying to think of like what's next and all that, like, it becomes exhausting. But we have to be able to nourish ourselves at the same time and not just reach for a takeaway bar. You know, and I think that is a real piece where we have to say to ourselves, like, the food system in our world is not set up for us to thrive. It's there to set us up for failure effectively. And that's scary because, you know, I know people are like, oh, takeaways are cheaper, it's just quicker. It's actually not nowadays. Like, for the 20 quid I drop on a takeaway, or the 15 quid I drop on a takeaway, I could probably make 2 dinners out of that for both Liam and I. So that's 4 dinners. You know, it's about where you put your intention and where you put your mindset. And don't get me wrong, I know my period's next week. So either Liam, like he usually does, will just step up, or if he's also exhausted because he could be going through stuff, then what we do is we just order a healthier version of a takeaway, or we just fuck it and we go, do you know what, let's get pizza with dough balls and ice cream. But I don't mind doing that because most of the time, what I am putting into my body is high nutritious content. And I'm not doing this thing of like, oh, I can't eat this and I can't eat that anymore. It's exhausting. It truly is exhausting for me. So I'm allowing my body to tell me and show me what it does and it doesn't want. And that comes with practice, 100%. But if we want to begin to feel our intuition and understand our intuition, like, we have got to start making changes somewhere. We've got to start allowing our body to speak to us. So whatever is going on physically for you right now, I want you to not take full pressure on and go, oh my God, I have to do all these things. No. Pick one. Pick one just for a few weeks, and then you can change everything if you want to. But I want you to pick one for a few weeks and just allow your body to tell you what it wants, because the body wants nutritious food. It doesn't want chocolate. It wants the magnesium in the chocolate. It doesn't want the pizza, the doughy pizza. It actually wants grounding carbohydrates. That's what it's telling you. It's the same with movement. Like, nobody's body doesn't want to move. We've trained it to find it comforting to not move because we find it uncomfortable to move the body. Because actually, when we weight train and when we move the body, it can sometimes bring up an emotional reaction. I sometimes get it all the time in the gym. Like, some days I'll go in there and I'll like get under a squat bar and all of a sudden I just burst into tears because something's coming up. So it can be deeply uncomfortable to move the body. So maybe even picking, like, going for a walk and seeing what that brings up, because once you kind of start feeling it and releasing it, that's going to help you to understand what your body truly does want and enjoy. Like, if dancing is your thing and it makes you happy, fucking do it. Get up every morning, stick on a 20-minute playlist and just dance your ass off. Nobody has to see. You're not doing it for anybody but yourself. So, like, our physical bodies are so important. As I said, it helps us tap into our intuition. It is so important to keep ourselves on a physical level healthy. But some of the tips and tricks I have, like, it doesn't have to be a whole method and like fuck of a map like they're making out in the wellness industry. They can actually be really simple, like 3 meals a day, 2 liters of water, go for a walk, and do some resistance training. That doesn't have to be every single day, by the way. Like, you can do your resistance training and your walking 2-3 days a week. Like, your resistance training can be at home with bottles of water, and then eventually maybe go to the gym. You know, so I just want you to start looking at it and being like, okay, how can I start helping my body and myself for a beautiful life that I truly fucking deserve? You deserve fucking health. And I mean health in all ways.